The Gauntlet is a very small event and it is meant for veteran PoE 1 players and it only lasts 10 days. I was not planning to participate in this Gauntlet, but over the weekend I had some free time, so I just kind of wing it in the campaign. If you do beat the campaigns, you get to have a free mystery box. It is extremely hard, so when you participate, make sure you come in with the right mindset. With that being said, from the perspective of a softcore players, I'm going to provide you all the guidance or tips and tricks that you need in order to beat the campaigns, and also talk a little bit about my build, which is an explosive ballista totems on the Aristocrat. The first thing you will do in the game is join the game, create the characters, and you are going to create a milling characters. What milling actually means is that you create several characters, that is before you even create your first character. And mainly people create a ranger alt. This is for you to get through hillocks very easy because you get access to burning arrow. Range attack just works so much better in the early game, at least in Act 1. And when you create ranger characters, you get access to Scroll of Wisdoms where you can roll your shops to get good gears. Beside that, being a ranger means that you get access to Caustic Arrow, which is the skill gems that you get from killing hillocks. And Caustic Arrow is a great skill. We'll be using that from level 1 till level 12, or when we get access to Toxic Rain. I'll talk about that in our build a bit later. Having access to a range skills from the beginning makes the early game a lot easier, especially if you have to go through some of the harder areas, namely, the mud flat where you have to kill a bunch of Broa. So yeah, having a ranger alt, get a bunch of items before you even create your characters, have it ready with a bow, and you can use Caustic Arrow. As you can see here, the Caustic Arrow leave a puddle on the ground. You keep shooting and leaving that puddle on the ground and keep shooting and moving, and it's a very safe playstyle in general. So yeah, that is the early game. So Caustic Arrow should help you get all the way through the early games very easy compared to the other skills. Also, when you are doing chaos damage, you technically don't have to deal with the monster resistance. Usually the monster in the campaign don't have any chaos resistance, so chaos damage is the preferred form of damage if you are going through the early part of the campaigns when you don't have a lot of gears. In terms of leveling, always stay over level, so stay ahead of the level of the monster level in your zone. In terms of leveling and how far you stay ahead, for me personally, I always try to stay at least 5 to 7 level ahead, especially when you get to the harder part of the campaigns. I'll get to that a bit later, so I have some checkpoint for you guys. But there's no need to rush through the campaign. If you are dying at any points, you have to do it all over again, so I recommend to just play it extremely safe at all time throughout the campaigns. And one of the reasons why you want to stay over level is because of the boss fight. The boss fight in the Gauntlet is designed to be a lot harder than the typical campaign that you run, especially if you're playing a softcore. You do not even think twice about doing the boss. But this is the Gauntlet we are talking about, and the boss fight in here are designed to end your run. So you have to prepare mentally, as well as having good gears, flask, portal scrolls, everything needs to be upped. Your logout macro also need to be there. And as a softcore player, you really need to get the setups and get used to it in the beginnings. Just mentally be ready to press that logout button anytime. Some of the boss fight is going to be a lot harder than the others, mainly Act 4 boss, as you are seeing here, and also Act 9 boss. And I really have to stress it out, like, you just better be safe than sorry. So anytime that you feel like you are dying, just press that logout buttons. You can retry the boss fight as many times as you can, but if you're dead, then you're just dead and you have to start over, and we don't want that. So beside that, for the boss fights, you want to always keep your flask up at all time and have a bunch of portal scrolls so you can portal out to refill the flask when you can. And yeah, that's like the two most important tips I have. Just keep resetting the fight until it gets easier and easier for you. And also keep up your flask, your portal scrolls. Your flask need to be well upgraded to your level as well. So when you actually press the life blast, it actually heal you. Also, a very important tips is you should watch the fight ahead of time. there's no need to worry about spoilers. If you're worried about spoilers, you probably shouldn't play the Gauntlet, and you should know everything about the mechanics of the boss fight before even step foot into the arena. The next tips I have for you is to stay overgear. And what I mean is you have to be flexible when gearing your characters. You have to stat check the campaign essentially by over-leveling so you have more HP. You want to cap your elemental resistance as soon as you can, and after Act 4, you also want to cap your chaos resistance. Before the Act 9 boss fight, you want to cap your spell suppressions, or even earlier before that. Essentially, just be really tanky so that you can go into the boss arena, tank a bunch of hits, and not getting one-shotted. Especially if you always have the mentality to love out in emergencies, you're not going to be randomly dying. So most of your gears is going to come from drops, but mainly I'm going to say mercenary drops, because as you get toward the end of the campaigns, the merc gear actually get a lot better. They actually well rolls rare gears, and you want to fight them for the gears. So when you're fighting the mercenaries, you want to avoid some rippy mercs. So mainly the sweep mercs need to be steady because they one-shot a lot of peoples already. But beside the sweep, when you see sweep, by the way, just kind of ignore the merc. And maybe body swap, because sometimes you can randomly die if the corpse have a lot of HP. Other than that, just kind of look through the merc stats. So like if it's holding a really strong weapons and it has strong skills, maybe you want to avoid that. We are playing a totem build, or I am playing a totem build, so most of the time I just kind of put my totem down and I just run out of my way so the merc cannot actually hit me, so I can actually farm a lot of mercs. For the major part of the campaigns, I mainly use tanky merc, which is the strength variant of the merc. They usually come with determinations. They can use the endurance charge. They have molten shell. They have a bunch of skills that help them survive. Any other form of mercs randomly die a lot. So if you want to pick a merc to use for the campaigns, I highly recommend you to go with the strength-based variant. And for the last tips, I want to talk about farming spots. My recommendations for you is to only farm in this particular safe zone of spots to over-level. This is important because some areas have dangerous mob type and should be ignored or try to skip through the area as fast as possible. You really don't want to farm there. I'm going to provide you a few area of zone that I consider the mob type is easy enough for me to farm. So for example, in Act 1, just before going beyond the ledge, which get you into an area of dangerous mob type, which is the goat, you want to farm this area until you are level 10 plus, so that when you go into the next area, you would have no problem fighting those mobs and don't get one-shotted. In Act 2, you want to farm Fell Shrine runes until you get to like level 20 plus. That way you can kind of tackle the Weaver fight a lot easier, you know. And then in Act 3, there's the dock area that have decent mob types and high densities that you can farm there until you get to roughly 35 plus. And for Act 4, you can farm Calm Stronghold or the Wrestle area, but you have to have bleed immunity there. It's kind of annoying, so I just go for Calm Stronghold. You can farm those areas until you get at least level 45. This is because the Act 5 boss is actually quite rippy. So you want to be way over levels, like maybe I would say if not, you have to be very well geared before you tackle that fight. And for Act 5, there's Chamber of Innocence, and this is also a very important area because you want to farm here for levels, but also you can farm for the chaos resistance stuff over here as well. It's that dropping Amethyst Ring. You can buy it from shops, you can get it on mercs. And essentially just try to cap your chaos resistance in Act 5 before heading over to Act 6. Because in Act 6, the zone modifiers for the gauntlet change and give the monster that extra damage as chaos damage. And if you don't have your chaos resistance, it can actually be quite rippy. A tips I have for you here is that if you really cannot cap your Chaos Rest, you can use a Chaos Golems and it gives you a little bit of Chaos Rest. And you can probably use the Amethyst Flask, but I highly recommend you to just cap your Chaos Resistance. It is much better, higher consistency, and you don't really want to get caught with your pants down when you don't have the flask up and it's a big chaos hit. So just before heading to fight the Brine King in Act 6, there's the Brine King Reef area where the monster is level 50. You want to farm there until you get at least level 58 or even higher, you know, depending on your confidence. This fight is actually really hard. This is because of the mini-boss gauntlet before the boss even spawned, and also the boss hit extremely hard, but you can prevent one of the mechanics by just porting out and port back in and wait out the skills like this. However, I would highly recommend you to just farm your levels just to be safe, on the safe side, right? Obviously, have a lot of patience when you're playing the gauntlets. You get to this point already and you spend a lot of time, so why risk it at all? This fight is quite hectic and you are at risk of dying if you don't really know how to dodge the boss mechanics. Essentially, yeah, just on the safe side, go to level 58. And also because there's not really any good spot to farm in Act 7, and this is one of the last area in Act 6, so it acts as like a farming spot for Act 6 and 7. And then you get to Act 8, and you get to farm on of the best farming spot in the game, which is Harbor Bridge. The monster here is level 60, and you can farm yourself to level 65 plus easily. And also, just a quick tips, if you have not done your laps, this is a good time for you to clear your second laps. And also attempt Merc Lap, but depending on your gears, I would leave Merc Lap to be last. But you can farm level in Merc Lap. The monster level in Merc Lab is actually 68, so you can farm yourself up to level 70 plus in Merc Lab if you choose to do so. Personally, I would stick to Harbor Bridge. This is because the area can actually spawn Merc, and Merc is how you get good gears this league. So it is really up to you, but if you really want to just farm some levels, I guess you can head to Merc Lab for that. So there's that option for you. If you are over leveling and you're farming gears, you're getting good gears from the Mercs. Roughly at this level, you will be able to tackle the boss, and especially important when you want to tackle Act 9 boss, because that is the rippiest fight of them all. And so let's talk a bit about the build, because I feel like it is equally as important for players that want to tackle the gauntlet. For this particular build, I'm not going to go very detailed into the build setups, but I will provide you with the progressions through the act POBs, with everything you need to know if you want to replicate these characters. This is not going to be a very beginner friendly, because first of all, it is so self-found, so you need to know how to play and farm the gears already. But this build is very good. It scales with gem levels, it is hit base and ignite. The build itself is tanky with damage, and it is quite important because if you don't have damage, you can probably fail these gauntlets because these bosses are on a timer. Also, this is a totem build, and totem builds are generally pretty safe. You put out your totems and you get to run around in the boss arena. This is considered to be very, very safe, especially if you don't know all the mechanics of the boss fight. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a standard EA Ballista totem build on an Aristocrat. The Ascendancy itself is very strong first and second lap. It gives you 7 passive points in totals and +1 to all gems level, which scales really well with EA Ballista. If you didn't know, EA Ballista scale extremely well with gem level. But other than that, having extra passive points and having the extra gem level provide you a lot of early damage, which is really good for the campaign. If you're playing Aristocrat, you also have much better early game setups because you get access to Mirage Archer from level 4, and also you get access to Ballista Totems at level 12 when you get to the Merveil Caverns. You are going to have a pretty smooth early game transitions into the EA Ballista setups because you're playing on a duelist. So you have access to Mirage Archer at level 4, and you have access to Ballista Totem at level 12. This way you don't have to mill a ranger all the way. Say if you are playing a class like the Ancestral Commanders, traditionally, Ancestral Commander is a lot tankier, but it's also tankier against small hit because it's Defiance of Destiny. And also, if you don't have any damage, it can be a little bit hard. So if you are playing Ancestral Commanders, I would say just go for Slam build, because Slam is just insane damage, right? For the early game setups, I want to talk about pretty much Act 1 and Act 2. This is going to be your skill trees. Focus on pathing over here first to braveries and mana flows to get some decent mana regen going. And then you are going to path all the way beeline to surveillance for some extra totem, because by this point, you will be using the Toxic Rain Ballista. And then we will be grabbing Farsight to do some extra damage from Caustic Arrow in the early games and also Toxic Rain later. For your skills, pretty much Act 1, you are going to start with the Caustic Arrow mill from your Ranger. And we are grabbing volleys and faster attack. And then you can also mill the Ranger all the way through Mudflat to get Shrapnel Ballista. Personally, I didn't really do it, but if you do, get another link here, Shrapnel Ballista and faster attack. And then for the auras, you don't have to run precision in the early games, but just kind of pick it up and level when you can. Vitality, Clarities, Withering Steps, pick it up when you can. Just check the vendors. There's certain quest line you have to complete to pick it up. And then for Act 2, we are going to swap over to Toxic Rain Ballista, which you can pick it up from roughly level 12 when you get to the Mermaid Caverns. So Toxic Rain Ballista totem is very strong. And then we are also going to use Toxic Rain with Mirage Archer as well. So these will be your two main skills. You are going to use Toxic Rain with Mirage Archers to kind of summon the Mirage Archers, and then you are going to place the Ballista totems. We are going to use Dash Withering Steps to get the Wither stack up, but have Dash as an emergency tool to dodge skills. And Vitality, Clarities, we are going to use Frenzy to give us some sort of Frenzy, self-cast, and we'll do Mana Forge later. Precision, again, you don't really need to do this yet until you swap over to EA Ballista Totem. So in roughly Act 3, when you get to the library, you can swap over to the EA Ballista setups. And when you swap there, you want to pick up all these points. So beeline to, well, I would say you want to pick up accuracy first, because you want to get all the accuracy you want, otherwise the arrow is going to miss. And then we are going to grab the Watchtowers as well as Elemental Equilibrium. This is very important notes to provide a lot of damage to ourselves, because this one deals elemental damage, remove exposures. Essentially, what you need to know is that on your gears, you cannot have flat fire damage on your gears. You have to have some source of flat lighting or cold damage. Anywhere in your gear is fine. So for me personally, I have it on my glove over here. But you can check in the calculators, or you can also check in the tooltips of the games. It will show what kind of flat damage that you have on your explosive ballista or explosive arrow if you hover over it. But yeah, the skill part of the arrow, it do lightning damage, which means that it's going to give you exposure to cold and fire, and therefore you do more exposure damage, which means more damage overall. A very important part of our build to give us plenty of damage for the early games. We are also doing the Ignite base build as well, which means that eventually in Act 4, we are going to pick up all these notes to increase our elemental damage with attack. Also chance to freeze, shocks, but mainly Ignite chance over there. Pick up some life note, very important because we are playing hardcore solo self-out in the Gauntlet. You want to pick up as many defensive nodes as possible. And then we are going to move over to pick up Heart of Oak and then a bunch of damage over here. So increase elemental damage with attack, very strong for the early game because we are using kind of like, we are like hit base but also ignite, but it just adds plenty of damage, and it's just very efficient node to grab. And then this one give you increased maximum life. Now, the next thing we want on our build is going to be skill effect durations. and often overlook, but this is extremely important on explosive arrow build because the skills, how it works is that you shoot a bunch of arrows stuck to the enemy. If one arrow explodes, all the others explode, which means that when you have skill effect durations here, you are going to be able to stuck more arrow of the enemies, therefore getting a bigger explosions and therefore a bigger ignite. Of course, later on you have to optimize this with attack speed, skill effect durations, but for the campaign, pretty much just kind of picked up all these notes and you can kind of see how much damage it gives us. So grab all these notes and I'm not sure why I have less here actually. It has to be more. So more skill effect duration over here. And then X7s, so starting from X7s, you want to focus more on your defensive. So by this point, you want to grab a Merc with Determination Aura and you start stacking your armor as well, armor and evasion gears. So going to X7s, we are going to grab Iron Reflex and also Unwavering Sense. We are going to grab these points over here for some suppressed spell damage. Evasion Masteries, and then by X8, we are going to grab all these spell suppressions, going for that life over here, get your spell suppression chance to be capped, and we are taking Magebane as well to help. Now, Magebane increase your chance of suppressed spell damage per dexterity, so just have some dexterity on your gears, and it should help, so try to balance it out, but if you can't reach 100%, maybe you can grab some extra point over here, or you can path over here and grab these strong point, so you get 12% from here as well. Or you can grab it on your gears. I do have gears with +6 chance to suppress spell damage on my glove. Other than that, just kind of follow the skill trees. Really by the end, you can add grace into the setups, which means that you need to take the leader of the pack for some reservation efficiency. But yeah, this is pretty much the end of the campaigns. I use this tree to kill the Act 9 and Act 10 boss. And it's roughly level 72. I mean, if you really want to pass through the Act 9 boss, it's so much harder than Act 10 in my opinions. You really want to over level to this point where you can grab all these points. The important checkpoint here is that, of course, you have to cap all your resistance. And then you have to cap your spell suppressions, have a bunch of total maximum life, 4k plus would be pretty good. And then for your flasks, always have 3 life flasks so you can press them. And it has to be like instant recovery flask. And then I'm using 1 granite flask. Most of my gears, I mean pretty much all my gears are all self-bound and they come from the mercenary pretty much. The next thing I want to talk about is you have to be flexible in your setups, right? So for the Bandit quest, I'm taking Alira for that 15% elemental resistance. Now for the Major God, before getting to this point and take Unwavering Sense and Iron Reflex, you are going to be using the Soul of the Brine King, but after getting stunned immunities, you want to use the Soul of Solaris, mainly for the Gauntlet of Act 9. So this one give you additional physical damage reduction, but also give you a 20% chance to take 50% less area damage from hits, which can save you if you are tanking some sort of skills, right? Soul of Garukan to reduce effect of shock. If you don't know, shock is very deadly. I have a flask to help me deal with shock, immunity to shocks, poisons, and corrupted blood immunities to bleed. So just make sure that at all point you should have a bleed immune flask or just have your logout button ready. Before we end the videos, I just want to quickly talk about my gear a bit. Obviously it's solo self-found, but I don't really do any crafting in the campaign besides getting the right socket color. So for the bow, the most important stat in the campaign that you can find is going to be increased elemental damage with attack skills. So try to have that on your bow and have a good base that have that. This is my level 28 bow that I used throughout the campaign all the way to Act 10 just because it is so good. It has the increased elemental damage with attack skills and the roll itself on the bow as well with some accuracy rating. And as for the quiver, we are looking for maximum life, resistance, elemental damage with attack skill when you can craft them in the campaigns. And then helmet, body armor, glove, boots. These slot, you are looking for life, resistance, chaos resistance, right? And some sort of spell suppression chance. And then amulet, life, resistance, increase elemental damage with attack skills. And then we are using a Amethyst Ring to cap our Chaos Resistance. You're probably going to need one Amethyst Ring with the Chaos Resistant roll on the ring itself as well. And then my builds is just insane. We have Life, Resistant, Chaos Resistant, and also increased elemental damage with attack skills. So I just completed my first map in the Gauntlets. And I'm going to be opening the Voidborne Reliquary key that I got in the campaign earlier. Let's see what we got, right? So hopefully we got a Mage Blood. If not, I really want to get something that we can use. So far, I have enjoyed the Gauntlet quite a bit. I have never really played such a tanky build in my life. But yeah, let's see what we got. Oh, okay. So this is a Lightning Core. Yeah, we definitely can make use of Lightning Core in our build. But yeah, my point earlier was that playing in the Gauntlets is quite fun. And so I will be playing the build a bit more, try to push for level 95 and such. But other than that, if you decided to play the campaigns, good luck to you. Take as much time as you want to take. And you still have time to beat the campaigns for sure. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.